The wail pierced through the smoke-filled corridors of the Zarkax refugee ship, stopping Dr. Sarah Chen in her tracks. She adjusted her emergency breather mask, the metallic taste of filtered air sharp on her tongue. This section of the vessel had been marked as cleared. There shouldn't have been any survivors here. "Control, I'm picking up signs of life in Section D7, she reported, her handheld scanner confirming what her ears had already told her. "Moving to investigate." "Negative, Dr. Chen," came the response, crackling through her comm unit. "That section's structurally compromised. Evacuation teams are pulling out." The cry came again, weaker this time. Sarah's medical training warred with protocol, but there was never really any question. "Sorry, Control. Can't copy. Interference." She switched off her comm and pressed forward. The refugee ship had appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system 3 days ago, its systems failing and hull breached in multiple locations. First contact with the Zarkax had come in the form of a desperate distress signal, and humanity had responded. Now Sarah picked her way through the wreckage of what looked like a nursery ward, her heart heavy at the sight of empty incubation pods. The cry led her to a sealed emergency pod, its transparent surface clouded with condensation. Sarah wiped it clean and gasped. Inside lay a Zarkax infant, no larger than a human newborn, its silvery skin pulsing with weakening bioluminescent patterns. The pod's life support was failing. Sarah's fingers flew over the emergency release. The pod's seal broke with a hiss, and she gathered the infant in her arms. Its skin was cool to the touch. Too cool, she realized, remembering her briefing on Zarkax physiology. They needed higher temperatures than humans to survive. The infant's glow was fading, its cries becoming whimpers. Sarah unzipped her emergency suit and held the baby against her skin, trying to share her warmth. "Stay with me, little one," she whispered. "Just stay with me." Her medical scanner showed the infant's vital signs dropping. It needed nutrients, specifically a complex protein compound that Zarkax mothers produce to help their young develop their bioluminescence. Without it, the baby wouldn't survive the next hour. Sarah's mind raced through options, remembering her xenobiology studies. The compound was similar in structure to certain proteins found in. Her eyes widened with realization. It was crazy, probably impossible, but she adjusted her position, cradling the infant close to her breast. "I don't know if this will work," she murmured, "but we're out of options." Sarah had been nursing her own 6-month-old daughter at home. If there was even a chance, the infant latched on instinctively. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, gradually, the baby's silvery skin began to glow brighter. The medical scanner showed stabilizing vital signs as impossible data scrolled across its screen. "Control," Sarah activated her comm, her voice shaking with disbelief. "I need immediate extraction. And get me Dr. Petal from Xenobiology. You're not going to believe this." Hours later, Sarah sat in the medical bay of the Earth Defense Force station, still holding the infant. Dr. Patel had taken dozens of scans, his excitement growing with each new piece of data. "It's extraordinary," he explained to the gathered emergency response team. "The proteins in human breast milk are being metabolized by the infant's unique biology into exactly what it needs. It's as if we were meant to be compatible." The Zarkax ambassadors stood nearby, their tall forms rigid with what Sarah had learned to recognize as shock. "In all our travels," one spoke, its voice translating through the comm system, "we have never encountered another species capable of nurturing our young. This is unprecedented." Sarah barely heard them. She was watching the infant in her arms, its skin now glowing with healthy patterns of light. The baby had fallen asleep, making tiny sounds that reminded her of her daughter's contented sighs. "What will happen to her?" Sarah asked, realizing she had already started thinking of the infant as her rather than it. The Zarkax ambassadors conferred briefly. "Our customs are clear," the lead ambassador declared. "You have become what we call a light mother to this child. In our culture, Such a bond is sacred, transcending biological kinship, if you are willing. Yes, Sarah said, without hesitation. I'll need to arrange things with my family, learn everything I can about Zarkak's children. But, yes. As she spoke, the infant stirred and opened eyes that glowed like starlight. Sarah smiled, remembering something her own mother used to say, that love finds a way across any distance, any barrier. She hadn't imagined just how far that could be. The medical bay buzzed with activity as doctors documented this breakthrough, as diplomats discussed implications, as history was being made. But in that moment, Sarah's universe had narrowed to the small, glowing life in her arms, a child of the stars who had found a mother in the most unexpected place. 2 weeks after the rescue, Sarah sat in the newly established interspecies care unit, watching her 2 children play. Her human daughter Maya crawled after the Zarkak's infant, now named Luna for her starlight glow, who hovered a few inches off the ground, her natural levitation abilities already developing. Remarkable, Dr. Patel murmured, reviewing the latest test results. Luna's cellular structure is adapting to incorporate human proteins in ways we never thought possible. She's not just surviving on your milk, Sarah. She's thriving. The observation room's walls displayed real-time data about Luna's development. Her bioluminescent patterns had grown stronger, now pulsing in sync with Sarah's heartbeat whenever they were close. More surprisingly, she was developing faster than typical Zarkak's infants, her mental and physical capabilities accelerating beyond all predictions. The Zarkak's Council is concerned, Ambassador Vilera said, her tall form casting elongated shadows in the room's soft light. Some believe this development threatens the purity of our species. Others see it as evolution, perhaps even destiny. Sarah gathered both children into her arms, noting how Luna's glow brightened at the contact. And what do you believe, Ambassador? Vilera's features softened, a rare display of emotion for her species. I believe we are witnessing something extraordinary. Our legends speak of a time when the stars themselves nursed our ancestors. Perhaps we're discovering those stories held more truth than we knew. The door chimed, admitting Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the station's chief geneticist. Her usually composed face showed barely contained excitement. You need to see this, she announced, projecting a holographic display in the center of the room. We've completed the deep analysis of Sarah's milk composition when she's nursing Luna. The display showed complex molecular structures, dancing and recombining. Your body is actually adapting, Elena explained, highlighting specific patterns. It's producing customized nutrients, specifically tailored to Luna's needs. It's as if your biology is learning and evolving in real time. That's impossible, Dr. Patel breathed, but the data was undeniable. There's more, Elena continued. We've detected trace amounts of human DNA being incorporated into Luna's cellular structure, but in a completely controlled way. She's developing hybrid characteristics that are actually improving her species' natural abilities. Her bioluminescence is 30% more energy efficient, her levitation control is developing months ahead of schedule, and her cognitive tests. A commotion outside interrupted them. Through the observation window, they could see a group of protesters, both human and Zarkak's, being held back by security. Their signs denounce species contamination and unnatural bonds. Luna began to cry, her glow dimming in distress. Without thinking, Sarah opened her shirt and began to nurse her, while keeping Maya close with her other arm. The infant's glow immediately stabilized, rippling with peaceful patterns that spread a gentle light through the room. They're afraid, Vilera observed, watching the protesters. Fear of change is universal, it seems. So it is love, Sarah responded, looking down at her children. One born of her body, one born of the stars, both equally hers. And love is stronger. The ambassador was silent for a long moment. There is something we haven't shared, she finally said. Our species is dying. Genetic degradation has been reducing our fertility rates for generations. We've searched the galaxy for solutions, but found none. Until now. The adaptations we're seeing in Luna. They could save our people. The implications hung heavy in the air. Sarah looked at the protesters, then at her children, then at the molecular dance still playing out in the holographic display. So what happens now? Now, Dr. Rodriguez said, we need more volunteer mothers. If you're willing, Sarah, we'd like to document your experience, create protocols. There are already other human mothers asking to help. And the Zarkax High Council has requested an emergency session. Vilera added, they wish to hear from you directly, Sarah. No human has ever addressed the council before. Sarah felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders, but also its possibility lifting her up. Luna had fallen asleep at her breast, her glow pulsing in time with Sarah's heart. Maya was curled against her side, one small hand reaching out to touch her alien sister's shimmering skin. When I found Luna, Sarah said softly, I wasn't thinking about changing history or saving a species. I just heard a child crying and knew I had to help. Maybe that's what both our species need to remember. That sometimes the greatest scientific breakthroughs come not from our labs or our logic, but from our hearts. Dr. Patel was already composing research notes, Elena was refining her genetic analysis, and Vilera was coordinating with the council. But for Sarah, the universe had once again narrowed to the two small lives in her arms, one born of Earth, one born of the stars, both showing her that love knew no bounds, not even those between species. The emergency alarms jolted Sarah awake at 300 station time. Luna's monitoring system was flashing red, and the infant's usually bright glow had dimmed to a barely visible flicker. She scooped up both Luna and Maya, running towards the medical bay with her heart in her throat. Her system is rejecting the adaptations, Dr. Rodriguez explained 20 minutes later, her face grave as she studied the readings. The hybrid cells are breaking down. It's like her original Zarkax genetics are fighting against the changes. Luna lay in a specialized incubator, her small form connected to various monitoring devices. Her skin, usually shimmering with vibrant patterns, now showed disturbing dark patches. Maya pressed her hands against the incubator's transparent surface, distressed by her sister's condition. There has to be something we can do, Sarah insisted, fighting back tears. She had already tried nursing Luna, but for the first time, the infant had been unable to feed. Ambassador Villara, summoned from urgent council meetings, stood silently observing. Her own bioluminescence was muted, a sign of deep distress in her species. The conservative faction will use this as proof that our species were never meant to mix, she finally said. They're already calling for all cross-species nurturing programs to be terminated. While they debate, my daughter is dying. Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. Dr. Patel burst into the room, clutching a datapad. Maybe not. Look at this. He projected his findings onto the wall. We've been so focused on how Sarah's milk was changing Luna, we didn't notice how Luna was changing Sarah. Her body has been producing trace amounts of Zarkax hormones, microscopic levels, but they're there. What are you suggesting? Dr. Rodriguez asked, already moving to recalibrate her instruments. Sarah's body adapted to produce what Luna needs. What if we could accelerate that process? Create a more complete biological bridge? He turned to Sarah. But it would mean changing you too. Permanently. The hormonal alterations would be irreversible. Sarah looked at Luna, her glow growing fainter by the minute. Do it. The next hours were a blur of medical procedures. Sarah's blood was processed through specialized filters. Concentrated Zarkax hormones were synthesized and introduced to her system. Her body burned with fever as it fought, then accepted the changes. Maya stayed close, somehow understanding the gravity of the moment, watching as her mother's skin began to develop a subtle luminescence of its own. Nothing like the Zarkax glow, but a soft, barely perceptible shimmer. It's working, Dr. Rodriguez announced, checking Luna's vitals. The hybrid cells are stabilizing. Her body recognizes the new proteins as fully compatible now. Sarah, still weak from the procedure, reached into the incubator to touch Luna's hand. Where their skin met, both of their glows brightened. Luna's eyes opened, shining with renewed strength, and for the first time, Sarah could sense her daughter's emotions directly through the contact. Fear giving way to relief, pain yielding to comfort. "You've sacrificed much," Vilera observed softly. "Your very biology." "I sacrifice nothing," Sarah corrected, gathering Luna into her arms as Maya hugged her leg. "I've only gained." She could feel Luna's hunger now, a new awareness that came with her changed biology. As she began to nurse her, the infant's glow returned to full strength, patterns of light dancing across both their skin. But their victory came with consequences. News of Sarah's transformation spread quickly through both human and Zarkax communities. Some called it an abomination, others a miracle. Medical ethics boards demanded investigations, religious leaders called for reflection, and military officials worried about security implications. "They're calling you a chimera," Dr. Puddle reported, showing her the news feeds. "The first human Zarkax hybrid." "Let them talk," Sarah said, watching her daughters play. Maya had developed a faint sensitivity to bioluminescent signals, able to sense Luna's strongest emotions. The sisters had created their own communication system, a blend of human gestures and Zarkax light patterns. Vilera cleared her throat, an oddly human gesture she had picked up. "The High Council has reached a decision. They want to award you the title of Lightbringer, the highest honor in our culture. No off-worlder has ever received it." "And what about the other human mothers who volunteered? The ones waiting to help other Zarkax orphans?" "That's the truly remarkable part." Vilera's patterns shifted to show joy. "Your example, your willingness to change yourself to save Luna, it's shifted the debate. The Council has approved a full exchange program. Under medical supervision, of course." Sarah nodded, feeling the subtle resonance of Luna's contentment through their new bond. She thought of the other mothers who would make this journey, of the bridges that would be built, of the barriers that would fall. "We're all changing," she said, watching Maya trace patterns in the air, imitating her sister's glow. "Maybe that's exactly what both our species need." 6 months after Sarah's transformation, the Interspecies Care Unit had expanded to occupy an entire deck of the station. Sarah stood in the observation room, now a teacher as much as a pioneer, watching dozens of human mothers nursing Zarkax infants. Each woman bore the subtle shimmer of genetic modification, their bodies adapted to provide perfect nurture for their adopted children. "The statistics are remarkable," Dr. Rodriguez reported during a monthly review. "Every single Zarkax infant in the program is showing accelerated development. Their bioluminescence is stronger, their cognitive abilities are advancing faster, and their immune systems are more robust than any in recorded history." But it was more than just physical development. Sarah watched as Maria, one of the newer mothers, cradled her Zarkax twins. The baby's light patterns synchronized not just with each other, but with Maria's heartbeat, creating a complex dance of connection that the scientists were still trying to understand. "We're seeing evolution in real time," Dr. Patel added, his excitement barely contained. "And not just in the infants. The modified human mothers are developing new abilities we never anticipated. The bioresonance between mother and child is creating neural pathways that allow us to feel what they feel." Sarah finished, absently stroking Luna's head as the now toddler practiced her levitation, showing Maya how to sense the subtle energy fields that made it possible. "We're not just feeding them. We're teaching each other." Ambassador Villara, who had become a close friend, entered with a delegation of Zarkax scientists. Their patterns showed amazement as they observed the scene before them. "Our population's fertility rate has increased by 15% since the program began," Villara announced. "Something about the hybrid proteins is healing our species' genetic damage. But more than that." She gestured to where a group of older Zarkax children played with human siblings. They were teaching each other their respective forms of communication. Light patterns blending with spoken words, hand gestures merging with bioluminescent signals to create an entirely new language. We're seeing changes in our adult population too, one of the Zarkax scientists added. Increased empathic sensitivity, stronger communal bonds. It's as if the presence of these hybrid families is awakening dormant aspects of our biology. Sarah remembered the protesters from months ago, their fears of contamination and change. Now those same fears were being transformed into hope. The waiting list for human mothers volunteering for the program had grown so long they had to expand the facility 3 times. Sarah, Valera said softly, her patterns shifting to show formal significance. The High Council has a new proposal. They want to establish similar facilities on Zarkax worlds. They're asking if you would help lead the expansion. Before Sarah could respond, a commotion arose from the play area. Luna had managed to teach Maya how to generate a tiny spark of bioluminescence, impossible according to everything they knew about human biology. The girls were laughing in delight as Maya made her fingertips glow faintly. Dr. Rodriguez was already rushing over with her scanners, but Sarah felt no surprise. She had long since learned that the bonds between species, between mother and child, between sisters, had a power that transcended conventional science. "I told you we were all changing," Sarah said to Valera, watching her daughters share their milestone. "But I don't think anyone expected this." The implications were staggering. If human children raised with Zarkax siblings could develop bioluminescent abilities, what other potentials lay dormant in both species? What doors were being opened by this bridge of nurture and love? "We're not just saving your species," Sarah realized. "We're becoming something new. Together." A group of new mothers to be entered the unit, their faces showing mixture of excitement and nervousness. Sarah remembered her own journey, how a single act of compassion had spiraled into a revolution of connection. She moved to greet them, Luna floating beside her, both of them glowing with welcome. "The procedure will change you," she told them honestly. "Not just your biology, but how you see the world, how you feel it. You'll share a bond with your child that goes beyond anything you can imagine. You'll become part of something larger than yourself." One of the women stepped forward, determination clear in her eyes. "Will it hurt?" Sarah smiled, remembering her own transformation. "Yes. But so does all birth. And what comes after?" She looked at Luna, at Maya, at the room full of hybrid families creating a new future with every moment of connection. "What comes after is worth everything." As if to emphasize her words, Luna and Maya demonstrated their new shared ability, their combined glow creating patterns that spoke of family, of love, of barriers overcome and horizons expanded. The new mothers watched in wonder, while the scientists scrambled to document this latest impossible development. Sarah felt it all through her enhanced senses, the hope, the fear, the love, the potential. They were writing a new chapter in the story of both species, one nursing mother at a time, one glowing child at a time, one small miracle at a time. 5 years had passed since Sarah first heard a cry in a damaged refugee ship. Now she stood on the surface of the Zarkax homeworld, watching twin suns set over crystalline spires that pulsed with living light. Luna and Maya played among a group of children, human and Zarkax alike, their shared bioluminescence creating dancing patterns in the gathering dusk. "Sometimes I still can't believe how far we've come," Dr. Rodriguez said, standing beside her. The scientist's skin now bore the same subtle shimmer as Sarah's. She had volunteered for the program herself 2 years ago, and now had a Zarkax daughter of her own. The numbers told an extraordinary story. Over 500 human mothers had joined the program, saving thousands of Zarkax infants. The genetic degradation that had threatened the Zarkax species was reversing. But the statistics couldn't capture the true magnitude of what had occurred. "The Great Mother arrives," a young Zarkax herald announced, and Sarah turned to see Ambassador Valera approaching with an elderly Zarkax she recognized as the High Matriarch herself. "So you are the one who began this revolution," the matriarch said, her patterns showing deep emotion. "With a single act of nurturing." Sarah watched Luna demonstrate a new light pattern to her human sister, their glows combining to create shapes their scientists were still trying to understand. "I just heard a child crying," she said simply. "Any mother would have done the same." "Perhaps," the matriarch agreed, "but not every mother's actions would have transformed two species." She gestured to the children playing nearby. The human children all showed varying degrees of bioluminescent ability now, while the Zarkak's children displayed increased emotional sensitivity and stronger empathic bonds. Gifts exchanged between species through love and nurture. "The archives have been updated," Vilera announced formally. "The period before the nurture program will be known as the dimming, and what followed as the great brightening. Your name, Sarah Chen, will be recorded as the first light mother." Sarah felt a familiar tingle as Luna sensed her emotion at this news, the child's glow brightening in response. Maya too looked up, her now sensitive empathic abilities detecting her mother's feelings. Both girls came running over, their lights dancing with joy. "The program has expanded beyond anything we imagined," Dr. Rodriguez added, checking her ever-present datapad. "The genetic modifications are showing stable inheritance patterns. Children born to modified mothers are carrying the adaptations forward. We're seeing the emergence of a true hybrid community." The matriarch's patterns shifted to show deep satisfaction. "As it should be. Our oldest legends speak of a time when all species could share the light, when barriers of biology meant nothing compared to the strength of love. We thought they were just stories. Now we know they were prophecies." A soft chime sounded across the city, and all the children, human and Zarkaks alike, began to glow more brightly. It was time for the evening lighting, a new tradition that had emerged from the blending of cultures. Families gathered together, their combined bioluminescence creating a spectacular display visible from orbit. Sarah felt Maya slip her small hand into hers on one side, while Luna floated up to rest against her shoulder on the other. Their three glows merged seamlessly. The mother's subtle shimmer, Maya's developing sparkle, and Luna's strong radiance. Around them, hundreds of other families did the same, until the city blazed with living light. "Mother," Luna spoke in the combined language that had evolved among the children, her words accompanied by patterns of light. "Tell us again how it all began." Sarah smiled, feeling the deep resonance of love through their shared bond. "It began with a cry in the darkness," she said, her own patterns joining the story, "and a choice to answer it." Maya's fingers traced glowing symbols in the air. "And now the darkness is going away, isn't it? Because of all the mothers and children making light together." "Yes," Sarah said, looking out over the illuminated city at the faces of hundreds of mothers, like her who had chosen to transform themselves for love, at the children who would carry this legacy forward into a brighter future. "That's exactly right." The matriarch raised her hands, and her voice carried across the gathering. "Let the archives record that on this day, 5 cycles after the first lighting, we celebrate not just the saving of one species, but the birth of a new one. Let it be known that the greatest power in the universe is not in our technology or our science, but in a mother's love, a force strong enough to bridge the gaps between stars." As the twin suns disappeared below the horizon, the city's light only grew stronger. Sarah held her daughters close, feeling the pulse of their shared connection, the beat of their hearts in harmony with the thousands of other families around them. She thought of that moment 5 years ago, when she heard a cry and chose to answer it, not knowing she would help write a new chapter in the story of two species. The light of their combined glows reached up toward the stars, a beacon of hope and transformation, a testament to the power of nurture to transcend every boundary. In the end, it hadn't been about saving one species or changing another. It had been about remembering a truth as old as life itself, that love, like light, knows no barriers. It only grows stronger when shared.